So, Matt, it was a big week last week at Google I/O, the annual Google conference. Before we talk about what happened there, can you give us a rundown of how Google works?
When the internet first launched, there was a whole bunch of websites, right? Just websites everywhere, all over the place. Like Coca-Cola got a website. All of higher education got websites in the 1990s. So there's all sorts of websites. And there became these things called search engines. Alta Vista, Yahoo, like just a bunch of different. Ask Jeeves was another one of them. A bunch of different search engines that helped you to find what you were looking for because there was so much. And then along came this product called Google. And they had this thing called PageRank, which is named after Larry Page. And what PageRank did, it started to learn how people were searching. So the way to think about it is this: is if you typed in New York Times into Google, and the very first hit was New York Times, or the third hit was New York Times, and people started clicking New York Times, then Google started to learn that that was a good hit. And so they started to just generate all of this knowledge about what the best answer was for your search queries. Google was our go-to and continues to be our go-to search engine with about 75% of the traffic.
Why do you think Google made the change that they announced?
Yeah, so before we get into the change, let's talk about how the bad of that starts to happen. And the
Okay.
very first famous thing was, what time is the Super Bowl? People were typing in, like everybody wants to watch the Super Bowl for the ads, right? But not a lot of people watch football games on a regular basis. So they started to type into the query, what time does the Super Bowl start? And since Google only delivered links, places began to call a title of an article, what time does the Super Bowl start? And then they would write an article about what time the Super Bowl started and get free traffic from this query. Well, Google knew the answer to that question. Google knew what time the Super Bowl started. So instead of putting links inside of that, they just put 6 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. Eastern as the answer. If you type into Google, how tall is the Eiffel Tower? It won't take you to an article that talks about how tall the Eiffel Tower is. It'll answer the question. If you type in Monsters University, on the SERP, you will see the admissions rate, the graduation rate, the average cost. So we started to see a bunch of answers because a lot of these queries were general queries, right? Like, I want to know something, and Google then tried to deliver that answer. Well, things have got a little bit messed up on Google these days, and I think the best way to describe that, Nicole, is thinking about if you type in a recipe, if you type in how to cook chicken soup or something like that, you get a novel about the history of the chicken soup and how grandma made it. And like, you're just, can I just get to the recipe, please? Like, you have to scroll so far down to get to it. And what has happened right now is that when there is an answer, but Google can't really surface it. It can for what time does the Super Bowl start, and it can for how tall is the Eiffel Tower, and it can for what is the acceptance rate at Monsters University. But if you start to ask it other questions like, what is student life like at Monsters University? It's not equipped to answer that question. So last week, Google made a massive announcement to address that.
What is the change that was
Right.
announced by the Google CEO?
Instead of having a search engine results page that is based on those blue links, they're going to make a generative AI landing page for every single query. So no matter what the query, so think, what time is the Super Bowl? But for just about every query, they are going to answer that question on the front page. And they're going to use AI to answer that question and surround that question. So if you begin to ask some of the questions that I know are being asked about our partner institutions inside of higher ed, is Monsters University a good school? What is student life like at Monsters University? Instead of especially what is student life like, instead of it taking you to the student life page of the .edu, then Princeton Review, then US News and World Report, and some other review sites, it's going to pull all that information to an AI landing page. And that's a massive change. For context, when we in higher education, and especially we at 3E, generate awareness for a student, for our partner institutions to students, we send out a bunch of messages, we deliver a bunch of content to students to generate awareness. A very real behavior of what they're going to do is go to Google and type in Monsters University. And what they're saying is, I'm interested in this institution, but I don't know the questions that I should ask it at this point. I'm at the beginning of my process, and I'm really thinking about what I should say. So what Google used to deliver was called the higher education search engine results page. The .edu was almost always at the top. So in this fun instance that we're talking about, monsters.edu would be at the very top. On the right-hand side would be a bunch of information, some from Wikipedia, some from iPads, some just from Google itself, talking about the institution. And Nicole, the interesting thing about that is that only about 18.5% of the people who did a search for an institution by name clicked on the .edu at the very top.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2 out of 10 newly aware people clicked on the .edu. So this change is not a massive, significant change for our institutions. However, there are some things that they should understand.
So I'm so curious, how will we know when these new AI, generated landing pages are created? How will we know that the information's coming from a reputable source and it's accurate?
Well, that's a really, really good question. So first of all, I'm going to answer that in two. One is, we're not entirely sure in higher education how this change is going to completely manifest itself. So the Google CEO last week said, this is coming to everybody. It's coming to everybody in the US in this week, and it's coming to everybody in the world in the next 6 months. So what this is a generative AI page with some links inside of it. Google also said that inside of generative AI pages, people click those links twice as much as they click the links in the old traditional SERP. So the old traditional SERP was just a list of links. In a generative AI, where they give you a little bit more context around that link, where Google gives you a little bit more context around that link, they are likely to click it. Now, to answer your second question, how are we going to know that information is accurate? Honestly, we're not, Nicole. Like, that's the thing, right? We had a gentleman's agreement with Google that if somebody typed in Monsters University into Google, the .edu would be delivered first, because monsters.edu or harvard.edu or whatever institution you want is a response to that query of just typing in Harvard University. The gentleman's agreement, or just a handshake agreement, and it wasn't even a handshake, like it was just Google won the internet. And so if somebody typed in the name of the institution into Google, the .edu was first. But that's not written in stone, right? That's not, we didn't agree to it. We're not paying for it. It's just a thing that happened. And so in this generative AI world, will the institution's content get surfaced in this? I don't know. I have some ideas on how to get it surfaced, but it's going to be, I generally don't know what information is going to come there. I personally think that because it's a product, Google is a service, they want people to be using this and they want to get value from it. So I think they will pull information from the .edu. But I think they'll also pull information from US News and World Report. And honestly, Nicole, just a little parenthesis here, I think this could mean no more clicks to US News and World Report. And that's their business model, right? Getting people to their .com to actually see the ads. And if all the information from US News and World Report comes to a generative AI page, what's the incentive to click on it?
Right. So this really is, it's a true exercise in winning. I just keep thinking
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have to figure out how to win. And so, what should our partner institutions do in this case?
See, right. I think a lot of it is winning, but I think a lot of it is it's a lot of what we talk about at 3, and that's personas and what are things that we think prospective students are going to do. So
Yes.
I think it's really super important to build a page on your .edu that is literally what is student life like at Monsters University. So that's the URL. The page title is exactly the same thing. And it's a long page describing what student life is like. So you're building this page for an AI and a person, but people scroll. Like Facebook has a never ending scroll, and we scroll on that. You can, instead of making 17 pages about student life, you make one very, very targeted, SEO targeted or AIO targeted, I don't know, artificial intelligence optimized page, a page that answers the questions that people are going to ask. And people are going to ask, what is the acceptance rate? What is student life like? What are the dorms like? What is eating on campus like? Answer the questions that I
Mhm.
think people are going to start to ask on your .edu and in your social, on your social platforms. And I think you can start to win the search for this. But the biggest thing is understanding what students are going to be asked. Like, we're ending one cycle and about to build a new cycle. So people are going to come on campus and visit your institution this summer. What hotels can I stay in that are close? You can put that on your .edu. Hotels that are
Mhm.
close to us with links. I did a generative AI search for a bunch of different tours, and the AI said, "Remember to wear comfortable shoes." Put tips on your page. Don't make the pages so transactional. The sign up for to visit campus pages on most .edus are very transactional. Make them still have that transaction. Here's where you sign up, but give people a reason why they should come and visit your campus. Put a lot of pictures on it. Make sure those pictures are copyright free. Lightroom is a product that you can export an image that's copyright free. But look, these are all
Mhm.
tactical things, Nicole. The bigger thing is, think about the questions that prospective students and families are going to ask a generative AI.
Mhm.
Type it in and see what answers are already coming, and then build content on your .edu that fills in the blanks. That's my advice. I mean, there's so much more that's going to come in the next couple of weeks and months. It's going to be a really interesting time.
Yes, it certainly will be.
So, I mean, I think, just to close, like, we really think really hard at generating awareness
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
people, for our partner institutions. And I think that this is the exact same thing. When the awareness is generated, we have we have plans and ideas, and I do a roadmap. And in my roadmap, I'm going to now focus on how to generate content that will most likely be surfaced by a generative AI landing page. So I'm excited for this. I think this is going to be better for our institutions. We're going to go from typing in the name Monsters University into Google, where you're just basically saying, I know I have questions, I just don't know what they are, to a prompt box that says, what questions do you have?
Mhm.
And like that kind of query, what questions do you have about our institution, are the kinds of things that are going to help us find the right student to attend the right institution. So I'm really excited about this. I really am.
It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.